In this episode, Dr. Artur Pietryka, an advocate at Wardyński & Partners Criminal Practice, who defends the accused in criminal cases and advises companies involved in such proceedings, will enlighten us on how a company should react if it is served with a demand from law enforcement to provide documents or information. Later, we'll have an update on the Polish economy.
The law enforcement authorities, prosecutor, police, or Central Anti-Corruption Bureau are increasingly demanding companies operating in Poland to provide documents, accounting and tax records, technical documents, data from IT systems, employees' email correspondence, personal details, and even cash. Companies may receive such demands in cases involving their own operations, but also when the authorities are investigating the activities of their business partners. Such demands are often sent by post to companies' headquarters or directly to their employees. The law enforcement authorities specify in them the documents and information they required, and when it should be handed over by. It can also happen that in order to quickly secure information, officers may arrive in person at the company and expect an immediate release of documents. In the event of a refusal, they will start a search of the company's premises. Having very often only a limited knowledge of how the company is operating, the enforcement authorities may sometimes demand a quite arbitrary range of information. Receiving such a request can cause consternation, as well as fear of the possible negative consequences for the company. Therefore, let us consider how a company should conduct itself in such a situation in order to limit its legal risks. How should one avoid chaos and panic when a demand arrives for details or documents? Is it possible to prepare for such situations? No matter how much business a company is doing, law enforcement authorities can request it to provide documents and information. It is sufficient for criminal proceedings to be underway, in which the company's and its employees' knowledge could be of use. It is therefore essential that the demand is not left without a response. Failure to communicate with prosecutor or the police may result in more adverse measures, such as searches of the company's premises, summons of employees for questioning, or fines for employees who fail to comply with the obligation to hand over items or data. The obligation to provide a reply does not mean that the company should respond uncritically to each request. The company and its employees have first and foremost a duty to protect its interests. The process of responding should therefore be properly managed so that the company is protected, while the law enforcement authorities also receive the necessary information. Each request from law enforcement authorities should be written so that the company's employees can assess the request and determine how to respond. In particular, there should be no doubt as to whether it has been issued by an empowered authority and whether the request is backed by legislation. Furthermore, the request should be justified and relevant to the circumstances of the case in which it has been issued. Companies often receive very general requests that lack a broader justification and only mention the crime involved in the case. However, this does not prevent law enforcement authorities from requesting the company to hand over each and every piece of documentation on the cooperation with a given business partner or all the documentation going back several years. It also happens that, despite the passing of several years since the crime was committed, the law enforcement authorities still demand an immediate or very early release of details and documents, following the receipt of the letter by the company, while warning that failure to comply with the obligation may result in a search or other more troublesome measures. Finally, there are cases in which law enforcement authorities attempt to forward requests to companies that are operating abroad through their Polish branches or affiliates, All these aspects must be taken into account when preparing a response. To avoid being taken by surprise, companies often introduce procedures for responding just in case they might receive a demand for documents or data, down-rate policies. The steps they take include making a specific person responsible for contacts with law enforcement authorities. This is usually the compliance manager or head of legal department. Such a person should know how the company operates, e.g., what IT systems are used in the company, and from where and how the data and documents may be obtained. Often, companies also take advantage of external legal support. This is advisable when the demand relates to a large transaction, documents from several years ago, or business secrets that must be protected. Just like witnesses or victims, a company can also appoint an attorney to a criminal case. Such an attorney will coordinate the contacts, arrange the details of the company's obligations with the law enforcement authorities, and the deadline for handing over documents and information, and can also assist in appealing against demands for documents or information to court.
At the end of February, Keir Starmer, leader of Britain's opposition Labour Party, caused an uproar in the country with his statement that Britain was in decline and that if this state of affairs continues, by 2030 the British will be poorer than Poles, who until only recently had been coming to Britain to earn their bread. This is only a catchy simplification, but actually, if you take into account gross domestic product per capita and the purchasing power parity of citizens of individual countries, Poland is already in 19th place among the 27 EU countries, ahead of Greece, Hungary and Portugal, and nearing Spain. With the exception of Ireland, between 2019 and 2022, no EU country has enjoyed higher economic growth than Poland. But even if we do catch up with Spain in this contest, it will only mean that the average income of a Pole on the Polish market will have the same purchasing power as the average income of a Spaniard on the Spanish market. However, the purchasing power of a Pole buying products or services abroad will still be much lower, because our earnings in euros are much lower than in Western Europe, and prices in Western Europe are higher than in Poland. The positive aspect of this situation is that Poland is still, and will be for a long time, an attractive place to invest, because it has relatively low cost of labor. Regards from Warsaw, see you in the next episode.